party, the designer and developer. Thank you so much for clicking this video. This is a series of videos centered around thinking like a YouTube engineer. Obviously the approach is different. It's not like I'm that guy who's going to give you a list of 5 things or 2 things that you must do in order for you to think like a YouTube engineer. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my own experience in doing so, touching base on important matters, important technique or things that can help you to become a better developer. So at this point in time, we are here. In the previous video, we were discussing what I call retail coding shelf picking. I was saying your JavaScript or your front-end script that doesn't have to pick different PHP script for whatever reason, because it's like there is no order, there is no structure. It's like a house that has got multiple doors that are open. At some point you might find the enemy inside the house. You don't know which door did he use. So what you will do, you have to close all other doors and put some walls there and only have one single door so that you can see the enemy when it's coming. So in this video, I'm going to talk about food order coding. The retail coding is like somebody who's in the retail in a shop doing shopping, groceries or whatever. So what they do, they've got a basket or a shopping cart. They are picking things as they want. As you can see, there is no order here because they pick whatever they want and put it in the basket. Now what I call it a food order coding is different from retail. When you are ordering food from an app or whatever, number one, there is a certain way of doing things. You don't just go directly to the restaurant and take food and go. No. Number one, for instance, you must use a certain application, let's say an app. You will go there, you have to sign up and you have to pick whatever that you want to pick. You have to check things out and then you have to tell them if you are going to, they must deliver, and they will tell you the delivery fee. As you can see that on food order coding, when you are ordering food in real life, there is some sort of certain things that you must do, some sort of an admin, and that admin helps you at the same time in getting what you want delivered efficiently and perfect. So the food order coding also, in terms of practically in coding, it takes the same approach. It means that now as you are advancing and becoming a better developer, you don't have a front end that directly communicates with any PHP file, pulling things from the back end and whatever. Now you are starting to think in terms of principle. You are starting to think in terms of architecture. You are starting to involve MVC in your own programming. You are starting to think of design patterns. So in this video, I'm going to show you practically my code now and also how it works. Okay, first of all, let me first show you how it looks, so that when I'm showing you the behind the scene, you can have an idea of some sort of, so that you can match the functionality or the intention of the program and match that with the behind the scene structures. Okay, so let me just wait for this to load. Sorry about my slow computer. Okay, so in the meantime, maybe I must also try to load Visual Studio. Okay, so reopen, keep waiting. So this is the project that I'm busy with it now. So this is my new structure. This is how things are structured now in my own application. Remember, the previous one didn't communicate any signs of a framework. Even though I haven't used MVC framework like Laravel and CodeIgniter, like as in practically mastering them and using them, but I've just realized that as I'm advancing in coding, I'm ending up building my own framework, and I call that framework Philantro. So let's look at this folder structure and see what can we learn or extract from it. Okay, let me see. This is industry plug. No, what I'm busy with now, it's secular. Do we have secular in here? Because industry plug is not my latest code. Okay, but it can work also because it's more like a recent code, even though it's going to have some small hiccups, but it will communicate the message. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got classes. Okay, once we talk of classes, we are talking of object-oriented programming. We don't have files, but we've got classes. That's an upgrade, or that's some sort of a differentiating factor. We've got classes. Okay, here are the assets as usual, but here we've got classes. And then in these classes, let's just look at what's inside these classes. We've got abstract classes, we've got app classes, we've got app model, we've got auto loading, we've got dependency injection container, we've got interfaces, we've got input and output classes, we've got module classes, we've got routing. Okay, let me just give you an idea of what routing is. Whenever a request comes to a server from the front end, a routing is needed. A routing is some sort of a technique of matching a request from the front end to a corresponding functionality to the back end. So meaning that there must be a single point where things are being handled, so that all the requests from the front end might pass through a single entrance, and then that request that you receive, be it a post or a get request, it must be some sort of routed to a certain functionality. It's like when somebody comes into your house, you don't want people coming from the back and the front and the windows. You want them to come through the front door, so that you can redirect those visitors to a certain member of the house. Maybe they are looking for your father, you will greet them nicely and you tell them that, okay, let me call my father, or you can go to a certain room to find my father. So you want to some sort of apply that order here. So in retail coding, as you have seen, that there is no routing mechanism. So how does routing work? Let's talk about YouTube. If you look at the URL for YouTube, for instance, when you are sharing a video, you click and share your own video, you will just notice that the video URL doesn't have a .php in the end, whereas whenever you hit that URL, a certain script will be called and will be used. A certain PHP script will be called and will be used. But in the retail coding, as you can see, as you have seen, that requests will directly link to a certain script, and based on the front end request, you can tell which script relates to what. When you are adding order, you know, even on the URL, you can see that this script is calling a file in the back end, and that file is add order.php. But when it comes to YouTube, you don't really know which files are being called. The only thing that you know, you copy the code, put it on a URL and press enter. YouTube will intelligently analyze the code, that type of request, and it will channel that request to a certain script that you are not even aware of. I think this is some sort of more secure, because people from outside, they don't have an idea as to what files are there in the back end. The back end remain private and the front end remains public. So basically routing does that. So as you can see here, I have some sort of router classes. I do also have some interfaces. Obviously, maybe I will talk about those later, but these are some sort of object-oriented techniques and mechanism that helps you to scale your code. For instance, what is happening right now, let me show you on Secular. Bear in mind, I've just opened a different project, which is Industry Plug. Obviously, now I'm going to show you the front end of Secular. Let me just log out. Okay, okay, it will log out now. So what I'm currently doing with Secular, I had a class in the back end, which is PhilanthroDB. This class handles all the database requests. So it's the one that when I want to log in here, it will query information from the database, and then it will send it to the business logic, and the business logic needs to decide if this person will log in and go to the back end, or they will not go to the back end. Okay, so let me log out again. So now, since PhilanthroDB has been coded long time ago, now I'm busy working on the business logic and the front end. The business logic and the front end are becoming advanced in terms of code quality, in terms of solid principle, in terms of good programming practices, but I am not updating PhilanthroDB. Now my production time or my production process is being affected because PhilanthroDB now is no longer relevant. It doesn't give me what I want. It always breaks. Remember, what breaks is only that PhilanthroDB part. Let me just show you where PhilanthroDB is on here on industry plug. Okay, on my classes, I'm looking for vendors. Here are the vendors. So PhilanthroDB, it's on vendors. As you can see, here is it. So this is the connection. This is PhilanthroDB, some sort of an entrance script to it. When, as you can see, since in the back end, Secular uses the same framework that I've created as industry plug. So in the backend, as you can see, when I'm logging in here, you don't have an idea or a clue, just like what YouTube does. Let me just show you this. Just like what YouTube does, when I'm clicking here, let me click on register. Okay, let me just expand this a little bit. Okay, let me click on register. Observe what is happening here. Let me click on register. Okay, you will see the user interface will change, but this URL won't change. As you can see, did you notice that this has changed but this doesn't change? That's what also the YouTube engineers are doing. It's the process that is happening behind the scene. It's called routing and maybe pretty URL, even though here I haven't like used pretty URLs. As you can see, I do have index.php in my code, something that I will improve. But other than that, you don't know where is this file connecting to. Okay, then let's just click sign up. So when you sign up, obviously the system is telling you that you must put something in this field. Let's just put something and then click sign up. And then as you can see, this is PhilanthroDB. The reason why PhilanthroDB is telling me column 0 is not part of the database column, please check the spelling. It's simply because it's no longer relevant. So I'm in a process of refactoring it or even change it at all and come up with something else. Maybe I might download a class from the internet that will help me to solve the problem, to act as my database backend. But because of I have used good programming practices, the MVC pattern, it means that PhilanthroDB, it's more like a plug-in. It's a plug and play. It's not coupled to my entire program, meaning that I can replace PhilanthroDB without affecting the interface or how the overall application. So because of I've used a separation of concern, PhilanthroDB, it's more like a plugin. So the entire application, when it's communicating with the database, it's not communicating directly to PhilanthroDB. No. Then what does it use? It uses an interface. An interface, it's more like let's say there is a beautiful house that you see. It's very big, it's very beautiful. But what if then, as beautiful as it is, it's just only the front wall? When you get into the back, you might say, there are no rooms here, it's only the face. So an interface in object-oriented programming is just that face. When you are on the other side, it looks beautiful. You can believe that it's a full house. But when you look at the back, you can see that there is no house here. So you can plug in behind that interface different houses. You can take a cheap house and put it at the back. You can take some sort of a big house and put it at the back. But the people walking on the street, they will never see which house is behind that interface. So that interface creates a contract between a guy passing by the street, a pedestrian, and the actual real house. So meaning that behind that beautiful interface, you can even put a shack. People won't notice. That's what the interface does in programming. So basically, secular communicates with an interface, and there are rules of engagement between secular and the interface. For instance, there are methods that are defined on the interface that secular depends on, not the house, but the methods. So this then means that even if I can change the shack that was there and replace it with another shack, that wall create some sort of a beautiful image and illusion to somebody who's passing by. So secular as an application is having a contract with an illusion called interface. As long as that interface provides something, it will mean that secular will believe that it's interacting with the actual database. So this gives me a freedom to change the database to whatever I want to whatever connection, to whatever website, without affecting the whole entire application. So at the moment, it's either I'm going to refactor my PhilanthroDB. Secular won't break because it's having a contract with the interface. So let me just give you an entire full process. Secular knows that when I want to validate the input, I have to use some sort of a method called validate input or check password, let's say. And that method check password, it's there on an interface, not implemented, but it's contractual that whatever database that I'm plugging, it must have a method called validate input so that secular won't break. So meaning that I can put any database that I want to and my own code won't break. So this is some sort of a magic when you understand this whole thing. It's very fulfilling, or it's satisfying to be able to change different sections of your own code without breaking. Tomorrow I can, like for instance, I can be able to replace this interface without even having to go through changing the whole database and other things. So let me just test that. Let me try to open a secular here on this window that has WIMS. Obviously my computer might be slow, but it's very important that we become practical and try to show on the code what do I mean, because conceptually it's not easy to understand things, but when we get into the practicality of it, then you start to be like, oh okay, this is what he means. So this form of coding, I call it like a food order coding. It's like now, instead of picking things from the shelf, you are starting to, here is secular, open this folder. So instead of picking things from the shelf, you are starting to have some rules. What are the disadvantages of a more structured and more professional approach to coding? Number one, it has got a lot of code. There is a lot of code. For instance, something that somebody can create a file to add an order, and then the front end will deal with that file to add an order. When it comes to this method, you have to see how that file features in the whole architecture. You have to create a class, and you have to see, am I going to have some subclasses? So number one, there is a lot of admin, a lot of thought process, a lot of planning, and when you are implementing it, you are not going to just write 2 or 3 lines. There is also some sort of code that you have to do. But if you do that very well, that means your code might be as solid as YouTube is. No breaking, and it always delivers. Let me just look at this. Is secular. Okay, let me close this. Where are my other files? Oh, this is secular as only the front end. Okay, it looks like I'm a bit confused, but please bear with me. I think the folder that was here before was the correct one. what I did, I went to I went to industry plug. And what I did on industry plug was a different application on its own, but I only substituted on industry plug the interface. I'm trying to plug in secular on industry plug, so sorry about that. But let's just go to UI components. So these are my UI components. As you can see here, we've got only UI. These are UI libraries. These are UI components. As you can see, that is login. Okay, as you can see, these are the controllers for login, these are the model for login. So if I want something that has got something to do with the view, with HTML, I go to the view. As you can see, this is CSS only for this view, JS only for this view. Let's see on login. So let's say now I want to change the interface for secular. I want to use a different interface. This is how easy it is. I'm going to rename the original okay, edit rename. Okay, just a moment. I don't see my rename here and I don't know why, and my computer is slow. Okay, let me just click here, and then where is my edit, and then where is rename? Okay, let me try another way of renaming. I don't know why I don't have rename. Let me just double click here. Okay, let me just double click again. Hoping that I can. Okay, let me just right click. Okay, let me just do it the long way. Oh, here is rename. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to swipe this view. This is going to be renamed, let's say login 4, meaning that now the application is not going to use this view because this view is no longer logged in, it's login 4. And this one, this HTML or this view, I'm going to rename it to actual login, and then we're going to rerun industry plug. In fact, now industry plug is changing to secular. I'm sorry about that confusion. Then I'm going to rerun. Okay, then I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this to login only. And suppose we are done with swiping the views just like that, because there are contracts in which the views need to stick to so that you can easily swap it without any problem. So let's just refresh, and then if it's not updated, we just have to update our cookies, and that's it. Refresh the browser cookies and everything is supposed to work well as intended. Let's just watch and see. Boom, as you can see, I have just swapped the entire layout and the view. One might ask, why now? Where do you get all these CSS styles? Every view comes with its own CSS style, so everything is being loaded dynamically. So if I were to some sort of change the layout, it will mean that while secular is running, I can take the portion, the view, and send it to a designer in India or to a designer in the United States. He can work on that view, and the only thing that I will supply the designer or the developer, the front-end developer, is that the IDs of my button needs to look like this. The ID must be this, and my ID for the buttons need to be like this, and your user interface, your HTML, need to conform to this standard. If that is the case, then that means they can work on the entire new user interface, and then when I'm done, it's like a plug and play, just like WordPress plugin. Then, well, I know the question that you have is, Matthew, can this work as intended? Can this be functional? Let me just type a wrong password, SMSA. Let's test and see if it's going to work as intended. You see, the username or password is wrong, and then from then, let's say, what if there is a right password, and then let's see. Cross fingers and pray. Boom, as you can see, everything is working well as intended. So change your password, then let me log out. Okay, as you can see, everything works well as intended. How long did I take to replace that? It was just a matter of few minutes. But if you look at my old code, is Wims here? No, I've changed. Okay, if you look at this code, as you can see, because of there is PHP involved, there is JavaScript, there is UI. As soon as you change something here, the entire code breaks. Let's end it here for now, so that we cannot make long videos unnecessarily. We were here on some sort of a better way, or the food order coding style, where in real life you are using an application to order food instead of being in a retail and picking whatever you want. So get into the MVC pattern, and remember why other coding channels are not, let's say, talking about design patterns and OOAD. It's simply because some of other people, they are not adapting this paradigm of doing things. They are not getting into object-oriented programming, so they are using the retail coding or shelf picking. So their front end is just picking things randomly, and that's it. As you have seen practically, that it's very easy when you work with structure. So in closing, let me just give you some sort of an idea of, in terms of speed of development. When you are doing things the right way, food order coding, that means design picking instead of shelf picking, meaning that before you pick something, there is some sort of design principle or design pattern that you put in place before you do things. Number one, in the entrance, when it's, let's say we are given projects, like me and the other developer, obviously me, I'm going to use this principle, and the other developer is going to use the shelf picking principle. He's going to be quicker on finishing the MVP, the minimal viable product. That means he's going to be quicker because it's easier. Obviously with me, I will delay a little bit because I have to put a framework, I have to put a structure here and there. So when we are starting, he's going to be like shoo, and I'm going to be like woo. But somewhere as time goes by, when the client is requesting a lot of changes, a lot of things need to be changed, a lot of framework, don't use this interface, use this, change this, and then he won't keep up with those changes. He will reach a ceiling, and then he will be some sort of stagnant. It's going to be difficult for him to make changes. And then if you take this approach, it goes slower in the beginning, because you are not solving the problem domain. If the customer asks you to do an accounting or food order application, you've got all other things, the classes, things that you are trying to set up in the beginning, things that you are trying to set up. Once you get that right, and then you are more quicker, you can quickly adapt, you can quickly change things, you can quickly, meaning that even if you can some sort of retire, you can ask someone else to continue. You can just, maybe you're going to give them a documentation of these are how my structure is, and also you are going to give them the UML diagram of your classes and the design pattern that we have used. Maybe here I have used a state pattern, here I've used a singleton, and here I've used a factory pattern, and that will be it. So your code is going to be scalable. You can take the code and divide it into multiple sections or fractions, where a developer in South Africa can work on this piece, can work on that piece, can work on this piece, and then from then you are just going to assemble those things, and they are going to work together. But a tightly coupled code, the intelligence goes down, and it falls down with that developer. You don't know where things are, you don't know how things are. Also, there is no channel of communication. When I want to communicate with another developer, I can just say to them, I have used a state pattern, and then they will go to my code and they will see, okay, this is the state pattern and how it works. But if a code is more like a retail coding or shelf picking, it's not easy to modify. Whenever you touch the interface, the logic breaks. Whenever you touch the database layer, the business layer breaks, and then it becomes a problem. I am Matthew Msingati, the designer and developer. I hope this is adding value to you. Please, if this add value to you, do me a favor and click that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. My channel is growing and I'm happy with it. I'm sitting at 80 subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. Please share this information with other people in the same industry that you feel like it might add value to them. Me and you, we are becoming better developers. See you on the next one.